You work hard all week, you deal with the commute, the emails, the meetings,
All the stress.
right, all of it. And then you finally get to Friday night, you collapse on the couch, turn on the TV, and you just do absolutely nothing. It's supposed to be the ultimate reward, right?
That's what we're told, yeah.
So why does the data actually say that sitting on that couch doing nothing is making you miserable? Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a really fantastic stack of material for you today. Book summaries, articles, and a legendary TED Talk transcript.
Yeah, and all of it is centered on the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi and his incredibly groundbreaking concept of flow.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to help you cut through the noise of daily life and discover the actual scientifically backed mechanics of true happiness, deep focus, and finding meaning in a world that is just constantly bombarding you with information overload. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to start, I want you to picture an abstract landscape for a second. Think of shifting interconnected gears in a flowing river.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
That imagery represents the seamless merging of action and awareness. Think about the engine of a car. When the gears grind, there's heat, noise, friction.
Yeah.
It takes a massive amount of energy just to keep the thing from breaking down entirely.
Which sounds like my brain on a Monday morning.
Right. But when everything perfectly aligns, all that energy is transferred efficiently. The car just flows seamlessly forward. And that's really the backdrop for today's deep dive. We are looking for that exact same mechanical alignment, but inside the human mind.
Right, getting that engine running smoothly.
Right.
But to understand how we do that, we actually have to look at where this entire field of study came from. Because the origin story here is incredibly gripping.
It really is.
Yeah, we were going back to Europe during World War II. Csikszentmihalyi was just a kid, like between 7 and 10 years old, living through the absolute destruction of the war.
A terrible environment to grow up in.
Unimaginable. And he watched the adults around him lose literally everything. I mean, their jobs were gone, their homes were bombed, their basic sense of security was just completely erased.
And what you have to realize is that for a child, adults are supposed to be the bedrock of reality.
Exactly.
But he saw that once the external structures of their lives were stripped away, very few of those adults could withstand the tragedy. Most of them completely shattered. They couldn't maintain any semblance of a contented, satisfied life without their external status.
Which is terrifying to witness as a kid. But it sparked this lifelong quest for him. He wanted to figure out what actually makes life worth living. Like, if external security, your job, your house, your bank account, if all of that is that fragile, where does internal resilience come from?
Yeah, and he was looking for answers anywhere he could find them. He turned to philosophy, religion, art, just trying to understand why humanity seemed so lost when the chips were down.
And he ends up stumbling into psychology entirely by accident, which is honestly one of my absolute favorite anecdotes from the sources. He's a young man, he's at a ski resort in Switzerland, and he is completely broke.
Like, couldn't even buy a movie ticket broke.
Right. The snow had melted, so he couldn't ski, and he has zero money. But he sees a notice in the local newspaper for a free lecture in Zurich about flying saucers.
Of all things.
Yeah, so he figures, hey, I have no money, it's free, I'll go listen to someone talk about little green men for an hour.
But the speaker wasn't some conspiracy theorist talking about aliens. It was Carl Jung.
The legendary psychoanalyst Carl Jung, just giving a free lecture. And Jung wasn't talking about extraterrestrials at all.
Not at all.
He was giving this deeply analytical presentation about how the psyche of the European people had been so profoundly traumatized by the chaos and destruction of the war that they were literally hallucinating flying saucers in the sky.
Yeah, he explained that these saucer shapes were actually ancient Hindu mandalas. Symbols representing ultimate order and unity.
Wow.
The European collective unconscious was so desperate for structure in a bombed-out, chaotic world that they were projecting visual representations of order into the sky. They were hallucinating order just to cope with the trauma.
That accidental encounter completely rewired his brain. He realizes psychology is the key to understanding this need for internal order. So he moves to the United States to study it and really dig into the hard science of human happiness.
Which brings us to the actual biological mechanics of how your brain processes the world. This is where flow begins to make logical sense.
Right, because before you can talk about human happiness, you really have to talk about human bandwidth.
Exactly. Our nervous system has a very strict, hardwired limit on how much information it can handle at any given moment. Based on the sources, we can only process about 110 bits of information per second.
Which completely destroys the myth of multitasking. Because when you hear 110 bits, it sounds like a lot, but let's contextualize that for you. Simply listening to someone like you listening to us right now and actually understanding the words takes about 60 bits per second.
So more than half of your brain's processing power is already spoken for just by paying attention to this conversation.
That is wild.
You literally cannot understand three people talking to you at the exact same time. It is a biological bottleneck.
I think of it exactly like a computer's RAM. Your brain has this 110-bit limit. If you engage in an activity that demands 100% of your focus, let's say a task that takes 105 or 110 bits per second to execute, there's literally no bandwidth left over to run your background apps.
Right. You don't have a processing power left to run the anxiety program that says, oh no, I'm worried about my mortgage.
Or the physical program that says, hey, I'm hungry. Or the social program that says, does my boss actually like me?
Yeah, your ego, your identity, and your bodily needs temporarily vanish from your consciousness. You don't feel fear, you don't feel hunger, you don't even feel time passing. Existence is suspended because attention is fully absorbed.
And this total immersion is what he identified as the flow state.
Exactly.
Now, the idea of the ego just disappearing and taking all that modern anxiety with it sounds incredible, but it brings up a huge contradiction to me.
What's that?
Well, if this state of intense, hyper-focused effort feels so good, why is our default setting to avoid effort at all costs? Like we were saying at the beginning, why do we spend our weekends trying to do the absolute minimum?
That contradiction brings us to a massive cultural misconception we have about what actually brings us joy. We have to look at the historical data here.
Okay, lay it on me.
Since 1956, personal wealth in the United States has nearly tripled, adjusting for inflation. The houses are bigger, the cars are faster, the TVs are much flatter.
Very true.
Yet, the percentage of people who report being very happy has remained completely flat at roughly 30%.
So, once you cross the basic poverty line and have your fundamental needs met, piling up more money and material comfort does absolutely nothing for your baseline happiness.
Nothing, because we constantly confuse two radically different experiences, pleasure and enjoyment.
Oh, this distinction is so important.
It is. Pleasure is entirely passive. It relies entirely on external sensory input. It's, eating a delicious slice of pizza, getting a massage, or binge watching a television show.
The easy stuff.
Right. But crucially, pleasure actually takes away your control of your attention.
Because the pizza is commanding your taste buds. The TV show is hijacking your eyes and ears.
Yeah.
You aren't exerting any effort to maintain that state.
Exactly. Enjoyment, on the other hand, is active. It requires concentration, effort, conscious focus. Enjoyment is what happens when you invest your psychic energy into a task, and in doing so, you get back control over your consciousness. You are the one directing the flow of information in your mind.
And to figure this out, researchers did something incredibly innovative that was detailed in the sources, called the experience sampling method.
Oh, the pager studies.
Yes. Back in the 70s and 80s, they gave people electronic pagers that would beep randomly 10 times a day. And when it beeped, you had to pull out a notebook and write down exactly what you were doing and exactly how you felt in that exact second.
Such a great methodology.
And the findings completely shatter how we structure our lives today.
They really do. I mean, the assumption was that people would be miserable at work and happiest during their free time. But the pagers showed the exact opposite.
The complete opposite.
People reported experiencing the highest levels of apathy, sadness, and negative emotion when they were engaging in passive leisure. Specifically, watching television or literally just sitting in the bathroom.
We live in this instant gratification land, yet the things that are the absolute easiest to consume are making us miserable. But let me push back on this for a second.
Sure.
We started this deep dive talking about collapsing on the couch on Friday night. Society tells us that the entire goal of labor is to earn leisure. Why does the human brain prefer a difficult, challenging task at work over just resting on the couch?
What's fascinating here is that the human mind inherently seeks complexity and growth. When you lack structure, when you are just sitting on the couch doing nothing, your mind doesn't naturally drift into a state of Zen-like peace.
Unfortunately.
Right. It drifts toward what psychologists call psychic entropy.
Let's unpack psychic entropy, because that sounds really abstract. What does that actually feel like for you on a random Sunday afternoon?
Think about a Sunday afternoon when you have no plans and you end up scrolling on your phone for 3 hours.
Ugh, the worst feeling.
You aren't actually resting. You start feeling vaguely guilty, then you start worrying about an email you have to send on Monday, then you start comparing your life to someone's vacation photos.
It's a spiral.
Your brain is a high-performance engine, and when you don't put it in gear, it just idles. It revs in neutral, generating heat and friction, shaking itself apart with worry and apathy.
That is a brutally accurate description of doom scrolling.
True enjoyment, the kind that leaves a lasting sense of fulfillment and prevents that entropy, only appears at a very specific psychological coordinate.
Which is?
The exact boundary between boredom and anxiety.
The boundary between boredom and anxiety. Here's where it gets really interesting, because it's exactly like the Goldilocks rule.
Yes, perfectly said.
Flow only happens in this highly specific sweet spot. Imagine you decide to take up chess, right? If you play against your computer on the easy setting, you're going to win every single time. Your skill level far exceeds the challenge. You're bored. You're probably checking your phone between moves.
Because your 110 bits are not being utilized, so the background apps turn on.
Exactly. But if you immediately sit down across from a chess grandmaster, you are going to be crushed in 3 moves. The challenge far exceeds your skill. You're panicked, you're anxious, you're sweating, looking at the clock.
Also no flow there.
None. But if you play a friend who is just slightly better than you, maybe they win 60% of the time, you have to stretch your mind to compete. That is the sweet spot. That is when all 110 bits of processing power are fully engaged, the background apps shut down, and 3 hours go by in what feels like 5 minutes.
If passive rest is a trap that leads to entropy, then we can't just wait around for a good day to happen. We have to actively engineer the environment that forces our brain into the zone. And there is a very clear recipe to do that based on the sources.
You need clear goals, and you need immediate feedback.
Immediate feedback is the anchor. Unambiguous feedback prevents your attention from wandering. Think of a tennis player.
Oh.
The moment the racket strikes the ball, they feel the vibration in their hand, they hear the distinct thwack of the strings, they see the trajectory of the ball, they instantly know if the shot was good or bad.
Or a pianist striking a chord. You don't have to wait for a performance review from your boss 3 months later to know if you hit the right notes. You hear it instantly.
Exactly, it's instantaneous.
And that creates a continuous high-speed loop that locks your attention into the present millisecond. But this makes me wonder, reading through all these examples of rock climbers and painters and chess players, it sounds incredibly isolating. Can you experience flow with other people?
Oh, it is absolutely not limited to solitary activities. Talking with friends can be a highly complex flow activity.
Really? Just talking?
Yeah, we don't often think of socializing as a structured game, but it is deeply governed by unseen rules. You have to read micro-expressions, you have to gauge tone, you have to know when it's your turn to speak, and you have to continually adjust your thoughts to keep the other person engaged.
That makes a lot of sense.
When you and a friend are deeply in sync in a conversation, time just vanishes.
Because you are matching their conversational challenge with your conversational skill.
Exactly. And this extends to family dynamics, too, which is crucial. A happy family life requires immense effort and shared goals to maintain flow. But because children grow up and financial situations change, those goals have to constantly evolve.
The targets are always moving.
Right. If parents try to apply the same rules of the game to a 15-year-old that they successfully used when that child was 5, the challenge and skill balance is completely broken.
Oh yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
Friction replaces flow. Families have to constantly recalibrate the challenges in their relationships to keep them fulfilling.
Okay, so we can set up all the perfect external conditions. We can find a task with a clear goal, get immediate feedback, and perfectly match our skills to the challenge. But there is a massive catch in the text.
There always is.
If your internal motivation is wrong, the entire formula breaks down. You actually have to develop a very specific type of personality to sustain this over a lifetime.
Csikszentmihalyi calls this the Autotelic personality.
Autotelic.
Yeah, it comes from 2 Greek roots, auto, meaning self, and telos, meaning goal. An autotelic person is someone who pursues a goal not for external glory, not for praise, and not for a paycheck, but purely for the joy of the pursuit itself. The activity becomes its own reward.
Because if you were doing something solely because you want a promotion or you want a bonus, the second you feel like that reward isn't coming, your motivation just crumbles.
You become anxious, you aren't in flow, you're in stress.
To be autotelic, you must cultivate a lack of self-consciousness. You have to stop constantly evaluating how other people are judging your performance.
The business examples we have from the text illustrate this perfectly.
Yeah, look at Masaru Ibuka, one of the founders of Sony. When he started that company in the ruins of post-war Japan, they didn't have a product to sell, and they had virtually no money.
None.
His primary goal, his Kelos, wasn't to become a global billionaire. His stated mission was simply to create a workplace where engineers could feel the joy of technological innovation and work to their heart's content.
He built an Autotelic playground, and the massive financial success was just a byproduct.
Which is amazing.
The same goes for Anita Roddick, who founded The Body Shop. She was driven by the intrinsic passion of simply doing her absolute best to create something ethical. The money was completely secondary to the flow state of building the business.
Okay, hold on. I have to stop you there.
Okay, what's up?
Because if I'm you listening to this on my morning commute and I'm heading into a job I absolutely hate, doing some mind-numbing data entry spreadsheet for a toxic boss, this sounds a little bit like corporate gaslighting.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like, are we just telling people they need to brainwash themselves into liking a terrible job? How do you possibly gamify an awful spreadsheet into an Autotelic joyful experience?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it comes down to a fundamental, somewhat harsh realization. Meaning is what you make it.
Okay.
Csikszentmihalyi famously stated, "The meaning of life is meaning." The universe does not owe us an inherently exciting job or a perfectly entertaining spreadsheet.
The universe isn't built to entertain us.
No, it really isn't. So in the case of the toxic boss and the mind-numbing spreadsheet, becoming autotelic isn't about excusing the bad boss. It is about actively taking back control of your own consciousness.
So it's an internal shift.
You are choosing to shift your psychic energy away from the resentment you feel, because that resentment is just a background app eating up your 110 bits per second and making you miserable.
You stop letting them rent space in your head.
Exactly. You focus entirely on the micro improvements of the task in front of you. How fast can you format those cells without a single error? Can you learn a new keyboard macro to automate a step? Can you beat your time from yesterday?
Oh, I love that.
You impose a set of rules and challenges onto the mundane task to force your brain out of apathy and into engagement.
So you aren't doing it for the boss. You are doing it for your own brain. You essentially build your own flow channel within an otherwise completely boring environment.
You refuse to be a victim of the boredom.
You become the architect of your own engagement. Even washing the dishes or mowing the lawn can be transformed into a work of art if you apply focused attention and rules to the process.
You transform the experience from the inside out.
So what does this all mean? We've covered the biological limits of the brain, the paradox of wealth, the trap of passive rest, and the exact recipe for entering the zone. What is the ultimate takeaway for you as you go about your day-to-day?
Well, I think it is a challenge to fundamentally rethink how you spend your energy and your free time.
Ditch the relentless pursuit of passive pleasure. Collapsing on the couch in front of the TV isn't recharging you, it's breeding apathy and psychic entropy. Seek out that specific boundary between boredom and anxiety in whatever you are doing. Make your own meaning by paying deep, uncompromising attention to whatever is right in front of you, whether that is a complex work project, a conversation with a friend, or, even washing the dishes. Take back control of your 110 bits.
It requires a massive commitment to active living rather than passive consumption. But, this raises a vital question, one that extends everything we've talked about into the reality of the modern world.
That's the question.
Well, human cultures have almost always prioritized security and comfort, causing people to naturally shy away from unnecessary challenges.
We are wired to want the easy way out.
We are. And look around us today. Our entire modern society, from automated smart homes that turn our lights on to generative AI doing our writing and our thinking for us, is relentlessly engineered to minimize human effort and maximize pure convenience.
That is very true.
But if the science clearly shows that flow, and therefore true human happiness, absolutely requires friction, effort, and the struggle to overcome a challenge, well, are we systematically engineering the potential for happiness right out of human existence? What actually happens to our minds when we finally succeed in making life perfectly effortless?
Wow. If those 110 bits per second aren't being used to overcome challenges, they're just going to turn inward and create anxiety out of absolutely nothing.
Entropy.
That is a heavy, incredible thought to leave you with. If flow requires friction, are we building a world that makes it impossible? Ponder that as you look at your perfectly convenient screens today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of your own consciousness. Keep seeking the challenge, and we'll catch you next time.